The PlayStation 5 has just officially been hacked. People have managed to jailbreak the console and are already installing sort of custom games and even bringing back lost gems like the PT demo. But I feel like some people do not understand what this really means and why, even as a person who loves his PlayStation 5, I do consider this to be a good thing. Let's talk about that. What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here. Hi, hope you're having a great day. If you could like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. So this gentleman here over on Twitter is Lance McDonald. Now, randomly, late last night, he just tweeted out this video here that's about 2 minutes long, and if you'll notice, it's him booting up a very interesting PlayStation 5. At first, everything seems very, very normal, and then suddenly you start to notice that everything on this desktop is a little bit off. These network tests for Elden Ring, some of this stuff here seems to be a little bit weird, and then he goes over and straight up jailbreaks the bad boy and installs PT demo. This is incredibly interesting because it shows the fact that he really has managed to go in here and really install something that isn't even meant to run on a PlayStation 4 anymore. This is a game that's been removed from the Sony storefront years and years ago, but he's installing it onto a PlayStation 5. This is actually a pretty big leap. Now, you may be wondering, why is this Lance McDonald guy doing this? What is this? Is this really cool? Is this bad? Well, specifically, the reason I'm actually interested in this is because of Lance himself. Lance is this guy who constantly is trying to break into consoles and upgrade games, to customize stuff, not to be a weird pirate or just straight up steal games. He is a guy that is incredibly good at straight up rebuilding games, including his most famous hack, Bloodborne 60 frames a second. Lance McDonald, this is actual Twitter account right here, rebuilt Bloodborne completely to make the game run at 60 frames a second. And obviously the game looks fantastic. It's even kind of insane that this game hasn't been patched to run at 60 frames a second already. Here he is battling a bunch of the bosses. It's just gorgeous that he managed to recode this in a way that even, obviously, it seems like Sony or From Software doesn't care to do. So him having this is incredibly intriguing, but already it feels like people are discussing this also because the jailbreak is still a little bit in those early stages. It sounds like this only works on older firmware, so even if you are a particularly tech-savvy fan of jailbreaking and you happen to own a PlayStation 5, odds are you can't do this. And additionally, what's kind of funny is that this jailbreaking only seems to work about 30% of the time, so you have a 70% failure rate. But what's the point of this? Why is this exciting beyond just upgrading games that already exist? There's been so much talk about the all-digital future, especially over the course of this last decade, of people wanting games to actually go digital only or constantly making cool indie games that actually only exist on digital storefronts like PlayStation Plus or just straight up getting put onto PSN. But my big issue is that a lot of times these games are posted, they exist, and then later they disappear. Either the storefront gets updated, the studio goes out of business, or straight up for some reason people just stop updating it, so PlayStation themselves removes it. I actually hate this. I am more and more against the idea of the digital future simply because, as a retro gamer, as somebody that does play a lot of older stuff along with all the newest, greatest games, it is incredibly annoying to me that games are constantly being permanently deleted. Like, actually consider that. Games that kids, I'm pretty old, I'm almost 40, but a lot of people out there have been growing up with the PlayStation 3. People have been growing up with the PlayStation 4. I mean, that was around for almost a decade just by itself. A lot of the games that those kids had straight up just do not exist. As they get older and they feel nostalgic about the games that they wanted to play as a kid, they cannot play them again. Jailbroken consoles, definitely the best part about them is that they can access the raw code of games. They can actually make a copy of the games that they legally bought and then save save it, re-upload it later, post it later, reuse it later. I mean, that's kind of why right now a lot of people have been making jokes about how easy it is to basically hack a 3DS. You can see here my Nintendo 3DS has like 80 billion games on it, and these are games I've bought, that I've saved, that I've played before, and I'm going to play again. And it's cool that now I can just put them all directly on this super easy little gadget. A console being hacked occasionally is honestly just good for the archival standpoint, but also it's interesting to see what people come up with. There's already been all sorts of crazy talk about the fact that apparently there is some architecture inside of the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5 that makes them very PC-like, which means you can install emulators, which means that already people are making, honestly, a very glorious way to play PlayStation 1 games in 4K 100 FPS directly on your totally normal console, or even doing some very bonkers stuff. There's been some rumblings that somebody may try and get something like, I don't know, a Nintendo Switch emulator onto the PlayStation 5, so you can actually get something like Breath of the Wild to run at glorious 4K on your normal TV with a normal controller, or even something like Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I mean, not to hate on the Nintendo Switch, obviously I love my Nintendo Switch a lot, but the graphics, the frame rate, a lot of those games, they kind of look like they're struggling sometimes. If I could seemingly play a PS5 port of some of those games, even if they are just upscaled and done by fans, I'd be curious, at the very minimum, to see what they look like. I mean, that seems like something that would be interesting to at least glance at, just to see the possibility of actual hardware running games that are objectively so dang fun. People also, a lot of times, once they've jailbroken or homebrewed a console, they make interesting mock-ups. This is a guy who actually has gone in and decided to make custom themes for the Nintendo Switch. This is kind of cool. Like, I mean, I probably wouldn't, even if I had the option to make my Nintendo Switch look like this, but like, keep in mind, when it comes to the Switch, the entire user interface has been the same forever. The menus, the buttons, the tabs, everything for the Nintendo Switch has been exactly the same forever. So these cool little mock-ups, these revisions, these extra codable, interesting twists on the very default design, to me, these are things that are artsy. They're unique. They're something that are different. I do think some people are going to try and do this for malicious behavior. I don't really like piracy. I do feel like in the gaming industry in general, there are a lot of very scummy, very crappy game developers. There is a lot of dudes out there that are trying to sell you the most microtransactions for the crappiest game, but there is a lot of very legitimately good artists. There is legitimate, hard-working people out there grinding to make the very best game possible. The people that are trying to jailbreak their PlayStation 5 simply to get games like God of War Ragnarok for free, or to bootleg a copy of Last of Us Part 1 because they don't think it's worth $70. You know, I do feel like those people are kind of missing the point. I'm more interested about this just because I do think that in the very long run, when the PlayStation 6 is out and stuff like that, it's good that somebody will already have all these cool PlayStation 5 games in a digital backup format. So whenever they start to disappear, because we all know they're going to eventually disappear, we'll have a way to still remember them. We'll have a way to still play them. We'll have a way to still look back and see what the PlayStation 5 was. But what do you think about this? Honestly, this is just such a cool, interesting situation. But let's see how long it takes for people to just start bootlegging everything. Tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a big old thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all, and keep dreaming. All right, back to playing my hacked 3DS, which is still the easiest thing ever. I don't know. I'm actually playing through all the Dragon Quest games right now, or I guess, you know, each of the games is like 100 hours long, so it's not like I'm blowing through them. But wow, I have never realized how amazing Dragon Quest is, which I know is like the dumbest statement ever, but every single Dragon Quest game, 10 out of 10. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, you know, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.